Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sustainability Chats with Friends. Before I let you listen to the episode, I do have a disclaimer to share, and that is that I had a technical issue, and so only the first 20 minutes were recorded when we first recorded this chat. And so I just want to give Em the biggest shout out and thanks for being such a legend and coming back a second time. And so we picked up the conversation where we left off. That is why there's an abrupt outfit change halfway through. But it's an amazing chat, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did having it. And go and look at Articles in Common. It's London Climate Action Week here, and it's such an incredible organisation doing such incredible work to help drive climate change action. All right, without further ado, here's the chat. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sustainability Chats with Friends. I'm so excited to be joined by Em today, who works at the intersection of outdoor gear and sports, but also circularity and climate activism through her company Articles in Common. But where Articles in Common differs to normal resale platforms is that some of the proceeds go towards protecting wildlife and the planet, which is really awesome. And so I'm stoked just to be talking to you and hearing more about all of the amazing things that you're working towards and learning about and curious about as well. So welcome. And if you could please take a minute to introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Emme Hayes, and yeah, I'm founder of Articles in Common and more recently Wild for Climate. Both of them are very interlinked. And Articles in Common is a outdoor resale marketplace where we're using resale to fund climate work and to fund initiatives that help protect wildlife. Yeah, just trying to, use resale as a solution instead of just an afterthought, really.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I liked a lot how last time when we spoke, you said that you wanted to create the system that you couldn't see, which I think is really cool. And so I was wondering if you could speak more to that and maybe also your background in fashion design and how that kind of led you to where you are now.
A system that you really couldn't see. I think, well, for me, it's about in the sense that you can't see it. It's about putting the responsibility on the business and not on the consumer
Mm.
because I feel like at least in the US, brands have, well, I mean, I can't even say that it's super local to the US because so many brands, outdoor brands specifically, are global.
Mm.
And I just have found that, and this isn't just specific to the outdoors, but corporations in general have used the storyline that it's up to the consumer, that it's up to our choice of what we buy that can impact and make an impact on the issues we care about, like the planet and about sustainability and circularity and just doing better by our planet. And I didn't want, I thought, what if a business just automatically took that kind of responsibility and integrated it into the business model? That it isn't about what nonprofit that you're contributing towards as a business, but that just in operation in and of itself helps fund climate work or helps fund, social impact,
Yeah.
environmental impact, whatever that may be. So, and it it answers Articles in Common answers the question of what would that look like as a business to operate within that model where the responsibility isn't so heavily focused on the consumer, that by supporting articles in common, you're supporting all of these initiatives. And if every business operated in that way, it wouldn't have to, the story, the focus of the story would no longer be, it's up to you, it's your choice. The story
Mm.
would then become, we're all just in this trying to make this better for the planet. That's how we
Right.
live. That's the lifestyle we live. That's just a part of the way we live. And I
Mm.
think right now, with the way the story is at present time and what it has been for such a long time, is that companies, corporations get to operate freely however they want to some degree without regulation, with as little regulation as possible. And over, decades, that regulation has dwindled to the point to where now corporations, at least in the US, are able to operate very freely without any kind of accountability and no one overseeing any kind of enforcement of any of the regulations that are left. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but
Love it.
that's
Oh,
essentially
sorry.
how it started. No, go ahead.
I love it. And you touch on so many interesting things too. But yeah, I think you touched on a really interesting point there with policy. And I saw online that you're involved with California's extended producer responsibility rollout. And so I was wondering how you got involved with that and how, if you're seeing that that's changing, how companies are operating near you.
Yeah, well, so I'm trying to figure out how, do you want the full story of how we I got involved in EPR? I mean, this goes back to, I have a background in fashion design.
Mhm.
So, and my work in the fashion industry is what allowed me to see how wasteful the industry really is. And the general consumer doesn't even know the half of the, the of they don't even know the half of it. They don't even see the full picture.
Mm.
And so I had, in being involved in like recycling and sustainability and fashion design talks, I was aware that EPR was coming, but
Mhm.
this was a long time ago. So that's how I was familiar with what extended producer responsibility was and what people were hoping it would accomplish. And but that conversation is not had in the outdoor industry. And
Interesting.
so, yeah, the outdoor industry sees themselves separate from the fashion industry, really because of brands, a couple of brands who try to advertise and market themselves as though they're not a part of the fashion industry in any way. But at the end of the
Mm.
day, you are, because you're using, one, you're producing at a mass scale, two, you're producing textiles, and three, you're using the same factories these fashion brands are.
Right, right,
But the general consumer doesn't know that. The outdoor person that these outdoor brands are selling to don't know that. And
right.
so, but how I got more involved with EPR, specifically with our articles in common, is because
Mm.
we started accepting donations from the general public because we wanted to see like what kind of items are people throwing away. And
Mhm.
as a
Okay.
designer, it's always been something in the back of my mind of being able to upcycle post consumer waste into something else.
Mm.
And whether that's, you know, by working with other individual, like what they call like cottage brands and things like that. Some of these cottage brands will upcycle
Mm.
from dead stock material, but it's it's more beneficial and it's truly more circular if we can upcycle from post-consumer material and not specifically dead stock.
Right.
So we started working with some of the local climbing gyms in the area, and one of them told us about their rental shoes and that they usually just throw them away, but they'd like to see them, get recycled somehow.
Mm.
And so out of curiosity, I wanted to see like how much are we talking about? What does this look like? And like just really just trying to do some research. I agreed to take on their rental fleet. And we're
Okay.
talking the first donation was 300 pounds of shoes. Second
Wow.
donation was roughly the same. So
Okay.
you multiply that, every gym rotates their rental shoe fleet 2, 3 times a year. And you multiply that by 60 gyms in SoCal alone
Oh,
on
wow.
average, depending on their membership volume. But let's
Mm.
assume that each of them are rotating through their rental fleets 2 times a year. That's a lot of shoes being thrown
That is,
into the garbage.
yeah.
Because one, the rental shoes are so cheap, they have no incentive to recycle them.
Okay.
And two, they see it as, oh, the newer shoe is what a gym member cares about. In actuality,
Mm.
a new gym member isn't going to understand or even know the difference between what makes a new shoe good, you know,
Mm.
and
Yeah,
what
yeah.
makes a used shoe bad. And
Mm.
so, because there isn't a difference, not in terms of someone who's just beginning
Okay.
and not when you're climbing indoors. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Yeah.
you probably don't unless you climb. But
I've tried like once or
so,
twice. I'm really not a climber.
so after getting those donations, I started digging and we started something called the Resale project, and it was just a temporary thing to do some more research. Like, where's to understand the whole process and how we could help facilitate to make it a circular framework. Not that I want to get into the business. It wasn't because I wanted to become a shoe cobbler. That wasn't the
Right.
point of the Resale project. It was really just to understand how we can make it easier for people to repair and resole their shoes and for gyms to do it. And so that way gyms could understand the value behind it as well. But after working with so many of them and trying to work with so many of them, it just became very clear that they don't care,
Okay.
and there's no law to enforce producer responsibility on them right now, and
Right.
they don't want to spend the money. And
Mm.
so that's whenever I then started reaching out and trying to figure out a way, like, that's when I learned, like, talking to industrial recyclers, I would have to pay them, at least with a couple of the recyclers that I talked to, I would have to pay them to recycle the shoe because
Yeah.
the rubber doesn't have any value the way other commodities do. I don't know if that's the sole reason, but oh, that wasn't going to work for me. But that's something that that I tried to get the gyms to budget for, include that in their budget. Then they don't have to, I mean, without getting into a big conversation about climbing shoes and climbing gyms. But long
Right.
story short, I mean, that's whenever I really started to get pulled into the EPR side, and more specifically working with an outdoor organization in California that has a lot of relationships with brands here because they help them lobby for different issues in California. And what I wanted to ensure, and the reason why I wanted to be a part of this conversation, because it's mostly just global retailers that are at the table of this
Mm,
conversation, which I
mm,
don't think is fair. They're basically
right.
self-policing, self-governing themselves, and we all know what what issues come out of that. That's not really accountability because you're the one that's producing it and you get to oversee it.
Right.
And so I wanted to be involved to sort of be a watchdog in a sense of like, hey, these climbing gyms need to be held accountable. They are producing textiles. A lot of them have their own little retail arm inside, like they sell like gear at their gym. And so they definitely fall in line with under EPR regulations because they sell footwear. So is that really going to happen yet? I don't know. I mean, the the rollout of EPR in California is just beginning. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that more outdoor brands are going to be held responsible. And the faster, if not in California, if more EPR regulations get rolled out in Europe, the better off it is globally, because
Yeah.
that pushes whatever happens in Europe is going to push that here,
Yeah, that seems
because
to be
they're
the
all about
case.
saving money, right? They're all about saving
Right.
costs. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really interesting. Were the gyms receptive to adding that into their budget, adding the recycling into their budget? Yeah, I didn't think they would
No.
be. That's too bad though. That is too bad. It will be interesting to see how EPR influences them in the future. Thanks for sharing that story. So I know that we've started out focusing on articles in common, but you also work on so many other cool things and awesome initiatives. So I was wondering if you could please talk more about those for anyone who may not know, like Wild for Climate and Gear Down, Wild Up, and your membership as well. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, the so Wild Up is our membership program that we recently launched. And that was we started that just from feedback that we were getting from some of our current customers. And also just people who would reach out and inquire about, asking if we offered a membership program. It's really great for people who have a lot of gear, but it also works as a way for people who want to make a bigger impact in terms of supporting the organizations that we support and the work that we support. So maybe they don't have a ton of gear, but they still want to help our cause and help the organizations that we're working to highlight. Um, and yeah, and Wild Up is we've also been doing a lot more community events and hope to do more. Um, because I think it's a really great way to um, bring awareness to some of these issues that are going on. Like, for example, one of the events that we did, it was actually our very first one, and that took place at Rome Fest, which was women's only mountain biking event.
Mhm.
And it had been a long running event, and they would they gained a massive following. And yeah, sadly, they celebrated their last year.
Oh,
So I think their founders are potentially moving on to something else. I'm not sure. We'll see. Maybe they're going to do a different type of event. I don't know. But yeah, so at Rome Fest, we thought that that was a perfect tie in um, with the wild horse issue. So um, for the people who maybe aren't aware, in the US, like public lands is a really big issue right now because the current administration is trying to sell off a lot of this land. Um, and it's something that makes the United States very unique in terms of, not a lot of countries have a public land system the way that we do. It gives so many people the ability to go out and explore um, in a way that's, really has a lot of freedom and flexibility, and it's just a really great way for folks to be able to interact with wildlands and wildlife. And one of the but something that's not talked about in within the outdoor culture is what's happening to some of the wildlife on BLM lands. And wild horses, you know, they get to roam free, and they've always lived wild on these in certain areas of the western US. And so the BLM, they exist to help manage some of the wildlife population. Um, and there's a lot of contention around the issue because a lot of nonprofits who um, are deeply invested in wild horse um, rescue, that from their observations of wild horse populations, they don't see any proof that they're doing any kind of damage to the land or to other species, including livestock. A lot of these cattle ranchers, they claim that wild horses are either destroying their land or intimidating their cattle, and from what a lot of these organizations have observed, that's just not true. And but what really is unfortunate out of all of it is that once the BLM, you know, rounds up these wild horses, they get sold at auction. And at the auction is where, there's a lot of kill buyers there. Kill buyers will buy horses just send them to slaughter. So some of these wild horses get sold into the slaughter pipeline, transported over to Mexico for slaughter, and that's just tragic. And so there's a lot of organizations working to highlight this issue and trying to save wild horses and trying to advocate for them. And I just feel like, why doesn't the outdoor industry talk about this? Why aren't outdoor media publications talking about this, or outdoor podcasts talking about um, the wildlife are such an integral part to the outdoors, and yet they're rarely a part of the conversation within the outdoor industry and within outdoor culture. And I think a lot of us take them for granted. Um, you know, I go back to one of my initial observations when I got in the outdoor industry is that uh, naively I thought that there was this inherent connection between people who love the outdoors and caring for our planet and caring about the climate crisis.
Mm.
And that connection is not inherent. It does not mean one doesn't mean the other. Just
Okay.
because you care about one doesn't mean you care about climate.
Mm.
And it was through that realization, among other realizations, that I wanted to do something to bridge that gap. Um, and so that's just one example of the things that we're trying to highlight. And we there's so many different issues like that are going on right now.
Mm.
And so, we hope to continue more of that and build more awareness outdoor events like Rome Fest.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how did you do it at Rome Fest? Did you kind of have like a screening of a show, or was it more just kind of talking about it, or was it kind of like was the whole event kind of the theme around the BLM and the wild horses?
No, I wish it would have been. I think, for that was our very initial like pilot
Mhm.
test event for us. Um, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not super easy to get an event director to want to highlight those issues or to want to center the event programming around that particular issue. It's very difficult for um, to get buy-in from these event programmers to want to do that. Fortunately,
Mm.
because they want to sell, you know, they want to sell community. They want to sell. They're so used to like having brands be a part of the story and having brands sell their gear and give away free gear and do raffles and things like that
Mm.
that um it's almost like that's what people expect or they think that's what people expect.
Okay.
It's really hard to create change in that way because people people are afraid to do something that they think might not be as successful. They want to see the event as successful as possible, um, which is totally understandable. But I think that's part of the struggle of changing the narrative outdoors is like being able to convince people that this is a story worth telling and it's a story these are stories that are worth giving the main stage to um you know
Yeah,
so
totally. Because I hadn't heard of it at all until we started speaking whenever it was in the last few months. Like that particular issue, I hadn't heard anyone else speak about. I hadn't seen it in any news media outlet at
yeah.
all. It's
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's great to be able to have a space to talk about it as well, like the lesser heard things. But
Yeah, definitely.
do you have any other community events in the works?
Well, with articles in common, I'm and for wild up specifically, we definitely hope to do more. It's actually been kind of difficult to juggle a lot of things because I've also, Wild for Climate is another initiative that I recently started. And what Wild for Climate is, it's it's creating space for deeper conversation around the climate crisis and the different issues that arise from that. And we started out at a climbing festival in California.
Oh, cool.
And then our second event was at an environmental film festival. And that one really kind of changed our trajectory, in the sense that our trajectory with Wild for Climate and how we were going to approach things, because we honestly didn't know exactly how the format or programming was going to unfold.
Mm.
But at this environmental film festival, it was the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, in Grass Valley, California, or Nevada City. And what was so amazing about that is that everybody there was already in the mindset. They already wanted to know more. They already wanted to like figure out ways that they can be a part of the movement and mobilize to create an impact, to create action towards a lot of these issues that these films highlighted.
Mm.
And it was really perfect in so many ways. And we hope to do another one with Wild and Scenic again, but in a deeper capacity and more involved with their programming early on. Um, but it kind of laid the foundation of what our format could be. And so after doing that event, we then thought, okay, this is perfect, a pretty perfect environment, more so than like outside festivals or sporting festivals, like the climbing
Mm.
fest we did. So that's where we're really trying to focus on now moving forward with Wild for
Mm.
Climate, is these environmental film festivals specifically. So, uh, just to give you an example, like I went to Docklands, which is a documentary film festival in San Francisco area, and um, yeah, it's just like a couple of the issues. Well, one of the issues that one of the films there, they talk about. It was called Trade Secret, and it highlights what's going on with the polar bears. Um,
Okay.
a lot of people, the polar bear is an iconic animal that a lot of people associate with, it's become symbolic with climate change.
Yeah.
Um, because of, sea ice melting, glaciers
Mm.
melting, they need this ice in order to survive,
Mm.
in order to hunt. They need that ice. That ice is their advantage. It's like their only advantage that they have, that allows them to capture their prey.
Mm.
Because polar bears aren't good swimmers, not fast enough to catch up to the things that they like to hunt,
Okay.
and which are predominantly marine animals.
Mm.
And so I highly recommend, like, go to the website for Trade Secret, look to see if there's a screening near you. Definitely go check it out.
Okay.
Um, but the way I try to tie that back into outdoor culture is because that film exposes trophy hunting. It exposes polar bears being hunted just for sport.
Mm.
And it exposes the wildlife trade program, like
Okay.
fur trade. You know,
Mm.
China
Mm.
is the largest importer of polar bear fur, polar
Really?
bear skin. Yes. And
Oh, I would not have
and
guessed.
it's just, all it's for is just status, luxury status. It's not even, the bears aren't even, their carcasses aren't even used for any kind of utility or functionality. It's literally just for decoration in their home. And so, and one polar bear will go for like $60,000 US
Wow.
dollars. So, and then, the second largest importer is Norway.
Okay.
And so the way that I try to tie this back to our culture is there's a big part of outdoor culture that are hunters, right? And trophy hunting is a part of that industry,
Mm.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And so you have this category that is not only hindering the animal rights movement and wildlife, protection
Mm.
of wildlife, um, and an endangered species at that. Um, and yet this isn't something that we talk about in the outdoors. And it's like, why not? Why aren't we talking about this?
Yeah.
Um,
I think
and
that,
if they're go
no,
ahead.
please.
What?
No, no, please go.
I was just gonna say, like, if the polar bear is the symbol of climate change, and this is a wild animal in this prestigious um, region, and this region in the Arctic is also used as a landscape to sell and promote outdoor gear and brands, right? So the Arctic and the Antarctic are both regions that some of these big brands have used as a landscape to film, to tell their story, to promote their brand, to promote their brand athletes, you know? Um, and it's the North Face sends athletes down to Antarctica. Why isn't the North Face why isn't the North Face highlighting what's going on in Antarctica right now? You know,
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of switching regions right now, but the problem is the same.
Mm.
Whether it's the Arctic or Antarctic or whether it's public lands in the United States,
Mm.
it the geographic location is irrelevant. The issue I'm trying to highlight throughout all of this, the common through line, is the fact that the outdoor industry could do so much to raise awareness and help mobilize the industry towards urgent climate action, not conservation. Conservation was built for something, it was built during a time where climate change didn't exist yet. We didn't know about climate change when conservation systems were developed. And and how long have we been talking about climate change? I mean, it feels like forever. And so if you look at just the time frame alone, like, look how fast technology changes. And
Mm.
yet we adapt to that. It's almost like we know how fast it evolves, and so we know we have to keep up with it, right?
Mm.
Why isn't that true of climate action
Mm.
and addressing urgent climate issues?
Mm.
We started talking about climate change in what, the 60s or 70s, and it's like, okay, it's 2026 now. What we developed back then, some of it isn't even relevant anymore because our landscape, our planet has rapidly changed that much. And the changes are are going to continue to happen and unfold in a faster pace
Mm.
as we're now surpassing all these critical points.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does make sense. And I think,
So why aren't we adapting to that, is my question.
yeah, I don't know fully. I mean, I don't have the answer. I have my theories, which is something to do with, it's very hard to become aware of an issue and then decide to actually make changes. And oftentimes those changes require you to challenge your own ingrained beliefs and ways of life. And that's a hard thing to do. And so I think new
Why
technologies
is
like
that a hard thing to do?
I don't know. I know that it's something to do with the way that our brains are wired. Like I remember when I was studying behavior change, it was like it was some neurological thing, like we're predisposed to not like change. But
I see.
I I was just gonna say, I think it's also just like as a society, maybe we're not so encouraged to change, and it's easier to stay in the safe zone and not challenge our own beliefs. Because if we challenge our own beliefs, then we're likely challenging our family beliefs, our whole education, like so many other societal factors. And that's quite a hard truth pill to swallow.
For whatever reason, I've always challenged whatever I've been told
Mm.
ever since I was a little kid.
I think you've got
I've
to.
always I've always challenged my, and thank God I did. Because
Yeah.
just because people are your family doesn't mean they're right. I
It's
mean, and
true.
it doesn't mean that that they know what they're talking about. It like so many people base their beliefs on false information.
Mm. And I think that's
I mean,
accelerated
look,
also in this day
I
and
think
age.
we really I think we really have to start questioning the narratives that we're told and the narratives that we're sold. I mean, we
Mhm.
literally need to start questioning leadership. We need to start questioning everyone. And we
Mm,
need to start holding people accountable to what
mm,
they say that they're going to do versus what they've done.
mm. Yeah, I think critical thought is actually something that's been coming up on my social media quite a lot. It's the whole
Mhm.
conversation of critical thought going out the window basically, and people just believing whatever they read online. And kind of I think there's a slow movement growing around people encouraging other people to have critical thought and to question what they're being told and what they're reading and what they're consuming and everything.
Mhm.
It's yeah,
I know,
I think
I just to me, I feel like I don't know, it's not change has never been I don't want to say it's never been that hard, but for some reason it hasn't been that as hard for me. And I
mm,
think I think it's because I think it just takes someone for people to look within themselves and not be afraid to examine themselves
yeah,
first, because
yeah,
that's where any kind of change starts. We have to
totally.
start with ourselves first. And
Mm.
like, you know, so I mean, I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but hopefully I've answered your question about Wild Up, the membership, and Wild for Climate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. So I thought you were gonna say something else then, but yeah, no, you did. I was curious though, with the membership, is it more for people who want to sell their old gear, or is it also for people who want to buy new or used secondhand gear, I guess?
No, it's just for people who want to sell their gear.
Okay.
So, for it, because they earn a higher commission when they join as a member, they earn a higher commission. Um, and it's full service resale. So,
Okay.
we take care of the shipping. It it's literally like completely hands-on. And that's why if you have a lot of gear, it's a benefit because you don't have to waste the time in terms of like, researching all of the product description and product information and taking all the photos and answering questions, and it's a lot, especially if you have a lot of gear. I mean, it's really time consuming.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you also
Yeah.
photograph things so beautifully, like it's a new product.
I think that I that was something that just from a consumer perspective, like my observations and frustrations with buying resale was that the product photos were never that good,
Yeah.
or a lot of times these platforms they don't even use the actual product of the
they don't use the photo of the actual product. They
Oh,
use
really?
a photo of that was taken of the new item. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that
like branded
makes sense.
resale, like if you go to like Arc'teryx or the North Face and you look at their resale platform, uh, those photos are photos of the actual product when they were new. They're not
Oh,
that the photos of the product as is in its current condition of the
mm,
actual product itself.
mm,
And so I think if we want resale to become mainstream, which,
mm,
you know, that's that's the that's the progress, that's the way we move forward is by making resale and secondhand the norm through
mm.
everything in life, not just outdoors, not just outdoor gear or,
Totally.
you know, but so my approach has been, let's make resale as a lifestyle. And by that, we can offer people who love the outdoors just anything that they would shop for. It doesn't have to be specific to outdoor gear. It can be outdoor vintage, it can be outdoor themed books or climate books or environmental books, and um
Yeah, I
it can
saw that you had
be
some magazines.
adventure dog gear. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I saw that you had some magazines on your website as well, like Nat Geo and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do um imperfect copies of Nat Geo or any outdoor magazine, maps,
Mm,
um, books, and it's really like thinking like what could that look like? What could resale as a lifestyle look like? So instead of going into like, you know, an RAI or something like that, like
mm.
what if it was an outdoor lifestyle store, but everything in there was resale?
That would be so
So,
cool.
one of the other things that we do is we work with climbing gyms, and we get a lot of donated items from them. And, water bottles is another big thing.
Mm,
Like all these brands, I mean, is there anywhere you can shop without seeing a branded water bottle now? You
very
know what
true.
I mean?
Yeah.
And how many water bottles does one person have? Probably a lot. I know I have a lot.
Yeah.
I try not to buy like the plastic bottles anymore. I just
Mm,
get like aluminum
mhm.
bottles, because they're lightweight.
Yeah.
But we're trying to sell used bottles now too, and we've actually been doing really well with it because it's like,
Oh,
why do you need a brand new plastic bottle? It's just going to get scratched up, you know?
yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
and we sanitize the bottles in house so that way, like we ensure that they're not getting some kind of gross used bottle. We try to
Mm,
invest the time in cleaning the products and making them look really good and because they're still in really great condition.
yeah.
And if we take the time and invest the time to uh make sure that it's not wrinkled, to steam all the garments so they present nice and look nice on the website, and you know pre-clean all of the gear. That way, when people receive it and they open it up, pleasantly surprised, and it gives them a good feeling. And they're like, wow, this is practically brand new. And I got it for a much better deal than buying new. That's
Yeah.
what we're trying to create, is like this really great experience that you the same, so that way it's the same as if you were buying new.
Mm,
Because having worked for so many different brands, you see firsthand exactly all the different things that a brand puts
money and time and effort into creating their brand experience.
Mm.
I mean, it can be even like higher fashion labels, higher fashion design labels.
Yeah.
I've worked for contemporary high fashion labels before.
Mm.
They put so much emphasis into every little detail,
Yeah.
like the way that the kind of paper that's used to wrap their product, the way it's folded in the box,
Yeah.
like so many little minute details that the buyer does not even think twice about. But that when you experience their brand, when you buy a product of theirs, it makes you feel good and you don't know why,
Mm.
but it's all these little details that they've they've thought through and they've integrated into their whole brand experience is the reason why you feel good when you buy their product. You feel like you're buying into something special, or you're something good for yourself or good for the planet. Um,
Totally.
and that's what I want. I want to put that kind of effort into resale, because if everybody did that,
Mm.
everyone would buy resale. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, literally, why not?
Yeah.
I think it's so awesome that you're doing that. And I really encourage anyone listening to go and look at articles and comment, because the website alone is gorgeous and everything really is photographed so beautifully. In a lot of the cases you couldn't tell that it was used products. Um,
Thanks.
I
Thank
think it's
you.
awesome. I hope that you do get to do the used shop at some point in the future. That would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely want to open up a flagship store, a
Mm.
community space,
Yeah.
and an app. That's our next thing, is
An
developing our
app?
own app. Yeah.
Oh yeah. What would the app do?
It would basically allow you to see your impact, and see all the different details, like what organizations we've donated to, why are we donating to them, like, and just being as much as transparent as we can be, because I'm a firm believer in, like, businesses need to be more transparent about what they're doing or what they say that they're doing. And
It's
we
true.
want to give people the ability to see the value of buying secondhand, so that way they can feel like they can actually see their impact. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and yeah.
And that's such a good tool also to have linking back to the behavior change conversation. Like that's so powerful to be able to see your impact and then have that inform your future choices.
Well, I think it's also just like a lot of people that gravitate towards us are people from our generation, and they're more tech savvy. Like, tech is more built into their life. It has
Mm.
been. They've grown up with it.
Mm.
And I mean, tech has been such a big part of my life.
Yeah,
And
same.
it's really, that's not going to change. And so we know that, and we want to meet people where they are and let them see, like, how secondhand gear can help protect wildlife
Mm.
and wild spaces. Like, we just want to close that gap as much as possible, like,
Mhm.
in every single way that we can. And by providing transparency, we hope to encourage more people to shop secondhand, but to also see the value in it. And yeah, I mean, I I just want, my hope is to, like, I want the outdoors and the climate sector to be so integrated, because the outdoors is one of the few industries that has that proximity to nature that other industries don't have.
Mm.
And so it's like, why isn't the outdoors talking about change? Why aren't they doing more in terms of addressing these urgent issues like what's happening in Antarctica? What's happening in the Arctic region? What's happening to our ocean? You know, all of these are such important things. Like climate action cannot just be focused on energy anymore. Back
Mm.
in the 70s and 80s, yeah, energy was the main topic of conversation and the main way that we were addressing climate action.
Mm.
But that can't be the case now
Mm.
because the planet is changing so rapidly. We can't just leave it to uh, energy solutions. We have to talk about deforestation. We have to talk about our meat consumption. We have to talk about, protecting wildlife.
Mm.
We have to start thinking about the planet outside of ourselves.
Yeah, I'm all for a planetary boundaries lens and not just narrowing down on one. I think they're all important and they all have a role to play, but it's good to remember that they are all connected and we're connected to them all as well.
Yeah. I think, like I hear it all the time and I'm sure you hear it too. And I feel it and I'm sure you feel it too, is like there's so many issues going on. People
Mm.
get overwhelmed, and they don't feel like they can do anything. They feel powerless, like they can't do anything because there's just too much going on.
Mm.
But the way I handle it is, and I'd love to hear how you handle it.
Yeah.
My approach is to look solely at what I can do,
Mm.
you know? What can I do in my life to make the biggest impact possible? Um, yeah. What's your approach?
Yeah, I love that mindset. I
How
think
do
I
you handle it?
Yeah, I think I've had that kind of view as well for quite a while, and I think where I'm at the moment is I really want to help other people with it as well because I think I got to be like quite selfish and almost self-indulgent, and I got to like minimize just as one like silly example, like almost all of my single-use plastic. Like I for years I barely used any of it. I kind of, you know, mainly shop organic food, do all of that. I feel like I've really had the time to examine my own life and reduce negative impacts as much as I can. And this is
Mhm.
a question that comes up really often, like, what do I do when I'm overwhelmed? And I think because I've been doing some public speaking recently, I hear from people afterwards that they're either scared or afraid of some of the consequences of the products that they use or things that they buy or whatever it might be, or way that they live their life. And so I'm actually like, I'm publishing it this weekend, starting a Substack about, like what changes can you do in your lifestyle that might seem small and pretty insignificant today, but that can add up and be pretty big changes over a period of time. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's also about kind of like making sure that you're okay with yourself as well, and kind of like your well-being as an individual, and also in relation to your community. Because I find that when you're regulated in that sense, you're less likely to want to just like like buy stuff all the time to make you feel better. And if you do want to buy something, you can buy it secondhand instead, and you can wait a tiny bit longer for it to arrive instead of like walking into a shop and buying something new off the shelf or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think for me it's been a lot about like making sure that you're okay within yourself, but then also helping the people around you as well.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. I think I have a little bit, I mean, my approach is a little bit different than most, I think. Um, but we each have our unique characteristics, and I think that's why it's important to speak about what each of us do, and I plan to do more of that, speaking, because I as much as I enjoy writing, um, it's a great form, it's a great outlet, just another form of self-expression for me, but I also enjoy speaking. I feel like I can get the message out faster.
Yeah, totally.
Um, yeah.
Like that article I was talking to you about is taking me like 3 months to write and draft and edit and be self-critical about and friends to read
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
way
That's
than like, recording a video and posting
yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. That I mean, I enjoy writing. Um, it serves a different purpose, because you think about it longer when you're
Totally.
writing something.
Totally.
Um, and you're refining what you're saying. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, that was actually something that I wanted to talk about in my writing. One of the reasons why I wanted to also record video, because it's kind of, I think I've made it a bit complicated. But anyway, basically, I wanted to start this kind of thing called like sustainability embodiment, where I would like share like tips, but also reflection with people on how I like lived a more sustainable life and how I live a more
Mm,
sustainable life and how I think other people can too, and also reflect ways in which they're already doing it. So I kind of wanted to write on Substack my intentions for it, but then also record YouTube videos because I feel like when you're
mm,
just talking as you are, kind of off the cuff, things come up that you've actually like really embedded into your life. And I think that those are the important things to share with people. But with that, then you
mhm,
end up with the to my account, I wouldn't say that I was a perfectionist, but I'm very particular about things and I want things to be like very well researched and well refined. And when you record in that way, it's just not. But I think that that's kind of the great thing about it. Like I want it to be imperfect. And I want people to
mm,
know that their life won't be perfect. And like my life isn't perfect. Like I don't live 100% sustainably. I think very few people do, but the fact that there's kind of like this like negative presence in the space of sustainability that almost shouts like you have to be 100% perfect or you can't be sustainable, I think is holding people back from participating and doing actions that might actually be quite significant over time. So that's kind of, I want to kind of highlight that as well through this, that just try, try something that you know will be effective, but try nonetheless.
yeah. I mean, I get that. I think, that's something that I think about a lot. Um, how do we hold ourselves accountable and companies accountable,
Mm.
but yet not discourage people
Yeah, totally.
from trying, because it's good to hold people accountable and ourselves accountable. I wish I had more people in my life that held me accountable, that were doing things bigger and better than me. Um, I wish I had more people like that in my life. It's always good to have people in your life that are challenging you,
Mm.
right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
so, but but at the same time, it's like, some people don't respond well to criticism. I think that goes back to like being like change being difficult for people. But I feel like it's all in our mindset. It's all in how you think about it.
Mm.
Like for
Mm.
people, when I'm talking to people in the outdoor space, it's like, well, approach it the same way that you would approach a competition or any type of like competitive sport. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like start being competitive with yourself. And if you're competing with yourself all the time whenever you're trying to do break your own personal record or somebody else's personal record or trying to be the fastest or trying to climb the highest or whatever the case is, and or whatever your sport is. And so use that same mindset with your impact and the kind of impact that you can have on the planet. But, for some people who for people outside of the outdoor space, one of the things that I talk about is like weight loss is such a big thing for people. It's such a hard thing for a lot of people. And it's like, why is that? Well, if you look at just like the mental side of it, I think a lot of people want the outcome
Mm.
without having to give up or sacrifice. And and what makes the weight loss so difficult is that people think about the things that they have to give up in order to achieve the weight loss, to achieve the
Mm.
goal, right?
Mm.
They immediately think about what they have to lose. And
Mm.
so if you change that mindset, like if you and I make this comparison, I only use the weight loss thing because a lot of people can relate to that.
Mm.
But I often compare it to being or becoming vegan,
Mm.
because you don't go into, I mean, I didn't approach veganism by saying, okay, I want to have the most impact on the planet as possible, like positive impact, or I care about so much about animals. That really wasn't it for me.
Okay.
What started veganism, or what started questioning me, it didn't start by wanting to become vegan. It started because I thought, why is it that I eat at the time? Why is it that I eat chicken and uh beef? I don't eat lamb, I don't eat duck, I don't eat
Mm.
venison, I don't eat all these other things, right? And I
Mm.
thought, why is that? I don't know what made me think of that. I
Mm.
think because I was dating somebody who would eat lamb, and I was just
Okay.
like, no, thank you. Like, I've
Yeah.
never tried it. I don't want to try it. And
Yeah.
I thought that's really interesting. Why am I so against that, but I'll consume beef or chicken? This was
Mm.
back then, you know?
Mm.
And and that question made me start to analyze myself and my behavior, and why I consume the things that I do. And it's because that's what was introduced to me growing up as a kid.
Mm.
You know, like what gets introduced to you as a kid is usually what you adopt into adulthood.
Mm.
And that's what sets the bar for what's normal to you, is
Yeah.
what you're exposed to early on.
Mm.
So if you know that, then you can start changing, you can start questioning different things in your life, not just with food, but everything.
Mm.
And examining your behavior and examining the choices that you make and why you make them, and if there's attachment there, why is there attachment? There's an emotional attachment to food for a lot of people.
Massively. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think if we're going to help people, we can't, like what we were talking about. If we know that not eating meat is the biggest way you can make a positive impact on the planet.
Mm.
So I think many vegans come out attacking people who eat meat
Yeah.
without trying to understand what makes it difficult for them to give it up, to
Mm.
not eat meat, to go plant based. And those are the kinds of things that I think we need to talk more about in order to help people make those changes, or even to be open to it. Because
Yeah.
so many people aren't even open to the idea of not eating meat or not drinking milk or whatever. And so much of that is rooted in culture too.
Mm.
Um, And so I just think if you take it one step at a time, not to think about the outcome, not to think about what you are giving up or what you're losing, and like changing your mindset about that. What is it that you have to gain out of doing this, out of making this change? And
Mm.
I can say, like, I mean, for me, I haven't eaten red meat in over 15.
Okay.
And I
Wow.
can honestly say without a doubt, I don't miss it at all. And my taste buds have changed for the better. You are going to change as a person when you make that kind of decision.
Mm,
Your taste buds are going to change. You're going to be open to trying different foods. Um, you may not you're not going to like the smell of red meat eventually.
yeah.
Even if you think right now there's no way I could give up red meat. Well,
Mm,
yeah, no one's in that mindset is going to be able to make the change. If
mm,
you applied that mindset to a competitive sport, there's no way I'm going to win this event. Well, yeah, if you go into it thinking you're not going to win, you're not going to win,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, well, start analyzing, start observing your own internal thoughts and your own internal feelings when you think about making these changes.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I also find food kind of like what we eat really interesting as well. Because I mean, I've been thinking about it quite a lot recently as well. So I was vegan for a year during COVID and I loved it. It was great. I totally had the time. For me, it started because I watched Seaspiracy and I was just like, I cannot eat
Mm,
fish. This is awful. These animals are being tortured. Like it's a horrible way to live. And I hadn't at that point, I don't think I'd eaten beef in like 4 or 5 years anyway, because again, the environmental footprint was too high. Um, and then it was kind of a combination of me, well, because during COVID I had so much spare time, so I was like cooking all my meals from scratch. I was definitely getting all my nutrients. It was wonderful. And then the COVID veil lifted, and I moved to New York, and I was living with a friend, and it was exceptionally hard to be vegan. And so I kind of slowly started to reintroduce fish, and then, fish led to chicken, and I was adamant that I wanted to keep vegan meals in my diet, like adamant. So I ate predominantly vegan for a long time and then made sure that my meal kind of matrix, like makeup throughout the week, was mainly vegan. But then I think it shifted again for me when I did an intolerance test because I was just having all these issues and it turned out I was highly intolerant to gluten, cow's dairy, and eggs. And so when I was
mm,
vegan, I ate a lot of pasta, which wasn't great for me. So then I had to stop eating that, and I just found that I like wasn't getting enough nutrients like I used to be able to. I think also I was eating a lot of like pizza. Like I don't think I was necessarily being like the
mm,
most healthy vegan person. Um, and so now I found myself in this kind of in between where I still tried to eat mainly plant-based meals for most of my meals, but I do still eat
mhm.
like organically sourced chicken, and I love making my own bone broth as well, just because it helps with my gut bacteria. Like I unfortunately don't have a very strong like gut microbiome, but it is something that I've spent a lot of time
Yeah.
thinking, especially recently, because I don't know why recently. I don't know why it's come up for me recently, but recently I've been thinking about it a lot. Um, and I don't know. I don't know. Because on paper, yeah, I
Mm,
completely agree with you. Like, veganism is the lowest impact meal. I definitely think everyone should be having several days worth of vegan meals a week. But I think it's also, I don't know, I guess because I've lived vegan subsequently after discovering all of this, and I find that I don't have enough nutrients in my diet for me and my body type that I do find myself needing on occasion, like chicken or fish or whatever it is. Oops. But yeah, it's a really interesting topic. And I do feel
it
hypocritical
is a really,
because I'm like, I care so much about sustainability. But then also when you go on and study like
yeah.
regeneration and then like that have you seen Rewilding, the documentary about Nep Estate?
No, I haven't. I've seen articles about it, but I haven't watched
It's
it yet, and I definitely want to.
beautiful. I love it. And it basically goes into how, like cows and cattle have been villainized for all of these years. Because obviously if you look at them in like a mass
Mm,
production scale, it's awful. But when you
mhm.
look at this like beautiful regenerative farm, like their hoof prints like creates like this whole world for insects and stuff like that. And I don't know, I think that's so beautiful.
Mhm.
I think it's such a nuanced and interesting topic to be talking about and pondering ourselves.
Yeah. I just think we need to start questioning the methods in which we're raising our and growing our food. I mean, like, you know, I didn't see Rewilding yet, but I did see a documentary at Docklands called A Dairy Story, and
Okay.
the film took place at a dairy farm in Scotland.
Mm.
And it was a really, really beautiful, touching story. And it just, to me, it only solidifies that if you want to change, like it's all about the mindset of how much you want to change and how much you want to see change.
Yeah.
Because this couple, this husband and wife, you know, he didn't want to, the dairy industry as it is right now, you know, they separate the mother and calf the minute that calf is born.
Mm.
And it's extremely stressful on the baby and the mother because they're such social creatures.
Mm.
I don't think a lot of people understand that cows are very so have like their own social structure. If
Mm.
given the opportunity, they display that type of behavior. Um, and it shows their journey of becoming uh, a cow and calf dairy farm. And cow and calf is like what you were talking about. I think with rewilding is like cow with calf means that they're keeping the mother and the calf together for as long as possible,
Okay.
and not separating them. They do separate them eventually once they're old enough, you know, in
Okay.
like in their own natural timeline of once they've become a certain age, they do, uh, you know, they don't allow the calf to milk from the mother at a
Okay.
certain point.
Okay.
But they're no longer a calf, you know, they're no longer a tiny little baby. They're much bigger.
Mm.
Um, and, you know, at the end of the day, the cows still get slaughtered, which
Mm.
sucks, you know,
Mm.
that's not great. Um, but, you know, it's progress, I think, in the right direction because factory farming is just inhumane. Factory
Completely.
farming is just an absolute disgusting practice, and I'm ashamed that it even exists.
Mm.
Um, and I need to redevelop our food system to be a more humane system or a
Yeah.
humane system, period. I don't
Mm.
know if that can exist. You know, for some
Mm.
vegans, if the animal is getting killed, it's not humane.
Yeah.
But for me, realistically, I'm more realistic about it. I know that there's going to be people, there's going to be cultures that are not going to give up meat.
Yeah. I think
And
that's where, oh, sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's where regenerative agriculture and to a certain extent organic agriculture can be really great for those cultures that don't want to
Mhm.
give up, but you can do it in a way that does support the wildlife and biodiversity and with that carbon capture and water storage and all of these things. I really think that that's kind of like the most kind of natural way to live, but also such a great solution in that as well.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, people don't want to see these animals suffering.
No, 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 no.
They don't. As much as they love like pork or beef or whatever, they don't, or milk, they don't want the
Mm.
animals to suffer the way that they are.
Yeah, I think you're right. I really don't. I think that if you quizzed most people or asked most people on the street, I think almost everyone would say that they don't want them to suffer.
Yeah. It's really
Mm.
interesting to me when when you present all of this information in a certain way that 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 forces people to self-analyze on their
Mm,
own terms.
mm.
I think that's where, we can get the most people to change.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it is important to give people time as well. Like, like change definitely needs to happen at a fast pace, but I also think it's important to like give yourself time to think about things and find where you kind of
Yeah.
feel, what you think on it, where you fall.
Hmm.
Oh, well, I think I would love to ask you my last question, which I ask everyone, which is what is one curiosity that you'd like someone listening to explore further? And it can be anything, a way of life, a book, a film, a place, like literally anything at all.
I think for me, based on, just what we've recently been talking about, it would be like examining why you do the things that you do,
Mm,
examining your own behavior, you know? Are there things that you could do better? Are there things that you could do without? Like start questioning things like that. Examine them and question them. And that's the only way that we improve as people.
I agree. Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your insights and perspectives on things. It's always lovely to hear.
Yeah, thanks for sharing and for connecting and for just, offering up people more insight and solutions.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.